Today's deck is so crazy that it just might work. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and honestly, we've got a sweet one for today, rather. One of my Discord regulars, Neodim, has been working on this list for a week or so and is finally confident enough in it to send it in, and we're going to give it a test drive on the channel. So there's a couple of different things going on here. Number one is some classic Shadless Agent abuse, where we would like to cascade into either Ancestral Vision or Crashing Footsfalls. For those of you with back problems, you might remember when Shardless Bug was a thing, and casting Shadless Agent and hitting things like Ancestral Vision was just crazy and an awesome way to grind the format down. Well, that's not super viable as a strategy anymore, partially because things like Orcish Bowmasters exist, and partially because there are other forms of card advantage now, like Up the Beanstalk and Tamiyo and Stock Up, that don't really require you to jump through any hoops and set up one of these things with something like a Brainstorm. But the upside of doing something like this is we also have Amped Raptor as an alternative way to get these cards into play and cheat their costs. And Amped Raptor can also just be a value card. And the secondary aspect of this deck is just value, with Stormchaser's talent and Boomerang basics like we've seen in a couple other recent Legacy brews. And our Boomerang basics can then return our Amped Raptors and Shadless Agents to hand to reuse their Cascade and energy-based triggers. And the third thing that we can do with these free cards is cast them for free with As Foretold. And as this goes and ticks up and up and up and up, we can eventually go ahead and start casting our other cards for free with these two. Note that we can also just suspend these cards if we are expecting a longer game. I think the mana base here is a tiny bit sketchy. I have talked Neodim into making some changes. I think Mystic Sanctuary is very actively bad, but paraphrasing a quote they said, "You haven't lived until you've Mystic Sanctuaried the Ancestral on top of Library and then cascaded into it." So we'll keep that in there to live the dream. I talked them out of some things like the basic mountain and the basic forest that were in some of the original versions of the draft, but they wanted to keep the Mystic Sanctuary. Every card that you have in the deck that is not just an island is a liability in making Mystic Sanctuary work. And they tried to get Wasteland in there, and I was just like, no. We don't get to be a 3-color Mystic Sanctuary Wasteland deck. I don't think that's reasonable. There's two slightly spicy things in the sideboard. Number one is Inevitable Betrayal, for if our opponent is playing a deck that has crazy creatures like Eldrazi in them. And number two is Fire Magic, which you might have seen in the flex slots of some decks. At 1 mana, it is 1 damage to each creature, which is very relevant versus like Ocelot Pride energy decks, but can then scale up more and more and more as you have more mana. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and hop into the video here. High hopes for this one, honestly. We're doing a bunch of powerful things. Hopefully our cards line up well. And if you decide that you like this and you need any copies of these cards, please consider getting them from my sponsor, TOAmagic.com. When you do, don't forget promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your order. Got any tournaments or some casual EDH stuff coming up? You need your cards? Get them here. All right, let's battle. All right, we have gotten paired against Bryant, who has been on an absolute tear with Storm recently. He talked about his exact win rate on the podcast recently, but it was exceptionally high. Again, the high 70s or low 80s, something like that with his current build. Bryant to 5. I don't know that Stormchaser's talent into Stormchaser's talent is good here. Like, I don't know that the game goes on long enough to naturally deal 20 damage with 2 otters. I think I'm going to go deeper. Oh, wow, this is not good either. Like, just suspending this is not a reasonable plan. I don't have a Force of Will and have not seen a Force of Will yet. I think I get to click the mulligan button one more time. Easily the best hand. Not close. This is what I want. 1, 2, and 3. Urza's Saga. Lotus Petal. I might take this as my Force of Will point with a Saga in play already to eventually untap that, and then just believe in the deck to spit up something reasonable. I think I need to try to cut my opponent off in the mana department here. Okay, I have succeeded. That's almost good. Send on in. 1 damage per turn. Maybe not where I want to be. I have long-term prospects. I don't have short-term prospects. All right, well, that one's happening. Yup. Now, whatever big awful thing made this hand keepable now gets into play. Okay, honestly, that could be a lot worse. All right, only keeping 1 of those cards. I think I go ahead and Boomerang Basics my Stormchaser's talent here so that I get a card deeper to see if I hit another land drop, which I did not successfully do. Bryant to 17. Does this hit Planeswalkers? It does. There's the 1 ring. I'm going to counter that. I think I'm going to keep the thing that gives me another Otter. Yeah. So I am way down on mana, but this could be worse. I am just going to get this going immediately. I think there's a good chance that I end up pitching this to a Force of Will. Send in for 2. 13. No, don't have good cards. Oh, it's big mana. Probably another Kozilek's Command. It is. What's the secondary mode? Spawns. What's my sideboard stuff look like for this matchup? Not great. Wow, 5 on the bottom there. This is 6 mana. Bryant is running out of bad cards to put on the bottom. Alright, 2 on top this time. That's the 1 ring. That's pretty bad. I think I will cast the Ponder even though I'm not really getting damage with the prowess here. Force of Will is cool and all, does not really help me close this game in any capacity. I think I need to shuffle this and find better. Alright. Life's bad. There's some amount of life loss on the other side of the battlefield, but I don't think enough life loss where I actually feel good about this. Lotus Petal. We're just going to go for more cards off the ring. This is 6 cards in hand. A lot of mana in the Urza's Workshops here. Tapping for 2 apiece right now. Oh, alright. This was a pretty competitive game for a mull to 4 on my end. There's Tezzeret for more 1 ring untaps. Is what we're getting. And I don't know how realistic a win is from here. I imagine just totally off the table is the answer. I don't know that I can deal 10 with 2 Otters off of 1 starting mana source. And Tezzeret is probably outside of range of being answered with this, and I don't even have the red mana to cast it in the first place. Alright, there's a Karn. A Portable Hole. Losing an Otter there is rough. Karn Tutors. Or Paradox Engine, which certainly kills me next turn. Kozilek's Command takes out the other Otter. Discharge can get rid of Karn. This doesn't go to face. I think I need to draw Force of Will right here. Negative. So now I can get rid of the Karn. My opponent takes 4 off their ring and then has Paradox Engine. I'm just going to assume that that beats me and save the next 5 minutes. GG. So I get Force of Negation, Consign to Memory, and Meltdown as things that are reasonable. I don't think I'm going to go this direction. Galvanic Discharge is not something that I want to cascade into, and I'm going to be bringing in a few things that I might not want to be cascading into. Like, this is just a card that does not trigger Prowess on Otters. It does mess with some cards that matter. I'm hoping to attack those in a lot of cases. These are also just not blue cards for my 6 force effects. I think I'm going to get rid of the discharges. Okay. This is Landlight again, which is not unexpected. I think this deck is very Landlight. I'm going to keep this hand. I imagine I just put Stormchaser's talent into play immediately off of a green mana source so that I can also suspend Crashing Footfalls at some point. There's Tower. Battle's fine. E is happening. Bryant passes back. I would like to hit more mana, please. Boomerang Basics, my own card. Trigger the Otter. Miss. Send in for 2. 18. I was told that math had been run on the mana base here. I think with 2 Force of Wills, I let that happen and go after payoff cards. I am suspicious that there is actually enough mana in deck. Just looking at my first couple of opening hands. Untap. I counter that. Pitching the Ancestral. That's fine. Going for payoff cards here. Yep. That's fine. Means that I can't get a Force of Will back later with Stormchaser's talent. Cycling. Alright, I make it through the turn. That is also not a land. There's an Otter. Attack for 2. 16. Workshop. Alright, pass back. That's great for me. That is also not a land. Blue mana, Boomerang Basics, Stormchaser's Talent, Trigger. That is also not a land. Send in for 4. 12. You may untap your Monolith. That's fine. Hate that, but it's not technically a payoff card. I think I let that resolve. Yes. This generates some blockers and buys some time, but I'm trying to keep the things that look like the One Ring out of play. Hey, you know what? That is also not a land. I think I am pondering for a land rather than playing the next Otter here. Yes. Bam, bam, bam. No shuffle. Land drop. Otter. Send in for 6. I'm just gonna take the life. That's fine. We won. I stumbled all over my own face, but we won. Bryant only hit 1 payoff card, 2 if you count Glaring Fleshraker in the top 13 cards. Seems like variance was on our side there. GG's. Are there so few mana sources in this deck that I board out As Foretold and get Galvanic Discharges back in? Kinda feeling that way. My sample size is 2 matches. 2 games, rather. Yeah. Let's split the difference here. I've not gotten up to 3 mana at all. Well, this time I have 3 mana. I don't have a counterspell. I have 2 Ponders. I'm going to assume that that's fine. It makes it a little awkward to just, like, jam Stormchaser's Talent here. Monolith occurs. Hate that. It's going to be a tutor. I was just going to outright untap. Alright. So it's play Otter to pressure Tezzeret, or play Ponder to look for something to stop a 4-drop that comes down this turn. I think it's more important to Ponder for Force of Will or Force of Negation. Nope. Did not randomly hit. I suspect we are dead. Yeah. That's bad. This is Tezzeret One Ring. I have no pressure on board. Need the most insane possible Amped Raptor hits. Lotus Petal. Another Monolith. Last turn. Well, believe this is an Ancestral right here. I cannot do Shadless Agent. I do not have enough energy. We paid 2 mana for a 2/1 First Striker. Not reasonable. So we get eaten alive here. I can't imagine coming back from this situation. We had multiple Force of Wills in the previous game, and we did not hit one here. Now Glaring Fleshraker is getting involved. I think I just concede here. I don't think I beat the stuff that is on board, and there's 9 cards in hand as well. I'm gonna save myself 5 minutes. Bryant has got to this one. GG's. Let's play a couple more rounds with this deck, but I suspect this might be a league that I drop and rebuild the deck. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you're looking to store your decks online, you're not going to find a better website. It's super organized and easy to use, and I sort everything that I do into a ton of format-specific folders, and you can customize the way that you use Moxfield to your liking. Whether you like text views or visual views of multiple different natures, Moxfield has it all. And it's so easy to use, you might even say that it's a snap. All right, Mystic Sanctuary is not a real land here. That's an ETB land with no real text. I think this hand is bad. Ponder needs to find me both of my other colors. or at least one to get to Shardless Agent. I think I'm going to mulligan this. This is a reasonable hand that needs more mana. I think I keep this and pitch Ancestral, get that back in the deck, maybe hit it with a Shardless Agent later on. Ah, joy. Skill-intensive deck. That requires a lot of format knowledge. I don't mind hitting the extra land drop there. I will go ahead and get my initial threat into play. And we're on Force of Will, pitch Shardless Agent, and hope that Ponder finds more interaction. That's 17. Goodbye, Force of Will. Alright. Miraculously not dead yet. Need to find a new Force of Will. None of those cards are Force of Will. I can brainstorm and look at 3 new cards off of Scalding Tarn after a fetch. I'm going to do that. I'll go ahead and fetch a Volcanic Island. And we will do this now for the extra point of damage via Prowess. Oh, wow, we actually hit. That is fantastic. I think I would like to fetch away Galvanic Discharge. Send in 4/3. 14. There's a Spy. There's a Force of Will. If there's a Pact. There is a Pact. Alright. My opponent wins. Engaging Magic. Riveting. So I'm going to be expecting Goblin Charbelcher as the pivot from my opponent here. I think given this deck setup, we're not green heavy with Summoner's Pact for Witherbloom Command juke. It's more common to see Unmask on the creature juke. Alright, next game. Force in, Endurance in, Consign in. Might play Veil. Will play Surgical. Don't think we're going to try to get cute and target our opponent with Inevitable Betrayal. I think I'm fully going to board Galvanic Discharges out. I'm going to be boarding in a decent number of things that aren't good hits for these cards. I'm not super happy about that. I think I'm just fully taking Amped Raptor out of the deck. We're a blue-green deck for this round. Just ignore the red mana. Shardless Agent pitches to both of the pitch card, well, all 3 of the pitch cards. This will do. I think I'm just going to Surveil land on turn 1 rather than Ponder. And I will say no to that land. I have my first 3 land drops secured. I have Force of Will, pitch card. Next turn I can Ponder and try to do something cool afterwards. Alright. Goodbye, Force of Will. Surgical's an okay draw. Do I have 1 Surveil land? No, I also have Thundering Falls. Alright, then I will make this land drop. Wait, goodbye Ponder, not goodbye Force of Will. Noted. Down to 12. An opponent passes. Interesting. Okay. So that's the moment where I'll lose the Force of Will. Oh, nope. Lost Surgical. Okay. Thundering Falls. I think I just say no. It's kind of interesting on 4 mana to rebuy Surgical. I think I'd rather roll the dice on Shardless Agent. If casting Shardless Agent is bad, my entire deck is just bad. So there's Shardless. Hit Boomerang basics with no permanents in play to bounce. Cool. Well, the previous words that came out of my mouth were, if casting Shardless Agent is bad, my deck is bad. So here we are. Opponent to 9. Battle. Alright. If my opponent has 1 more mana, I'm dead. They don't. Alright. I can Mystic Sanctuary a Ponder back on top of my deck. That doesn't seem good. Do I have Galvanic Relays? Or, sorry, Galvanic Discharges? No. Hit Boomerang basics. I couldn't cast earlier to have it in my graveyard. No targets. Alright. Yeah. Rainstorm. Cast that. Okay, it is Boomerang basics. Put back land. Land. Resolve this. Land drop. I need to, I think, bounce this out of play and then hit a blue card. That would be cool. Oh wait, I would just be returning that to hand. I'm not getting to draw a card here. Let's just hope that my opponent is bottlenecked on mana then. So get you out of play. Opponent to 7. That is the next land drop. Okay, that should do it. Alright, now it's a Spy instead. Sure. So there's a bunch of Narcomoeba triggers. I think my opponent just ran the game 1 deck. Again, there was not a juke. Alright, well there's the Oracle. On to the next one. Not super happy with my opening hand. I have Stormchaser's talent into pick it up with Boomerang basics, but my next land is an ETB tapped land, which seems like a disaster because I can't like start suspending these, and I don't have the option to suspend this on turn 1. Like, I guess I keep it, and I'm just unhappy. There's the Otter. Basic Island, Shuko. Alright, we are playing against combo, and my land drops are all fucking terrible. Okay. Boomerang basics on Stormchaser's talent. I just need the redraw, frankly. Alright. I guess we do one of the ETB tapped lands in hopes of finding something that is untapped for next turn? No. Absolutely not. Send in for 2. 18. Let's see if I'm dead. Voice of Victory. That's not great for my long-term prospects here. So I can't jam Shadless Agent because Mystic Sanctuary enters tapped. I guess I'll Ponder first. The prowess doesn't matter immediately. I also don't have red mana or casting a Galvanic Discharge, which is a super big deal. Excellent. Now I can't remove this. I mean, I guess I will keep the Galvanic Discharge and this land. Do a new Stormchaser's talent, and then do the ETB tapped Mystic Sanctuary. Yeah, 3 damage, 14. If my opponent's got the combo, like, it's all clear and they know it. There is nothing that I can do with this Voice of Victory in play. And there is the Cephalid Illusionist. So if you're not familiar with this combo, my opponent is now going to repeatedly target Cephalid Illusionist with Shuko until they have milled their entire library. At which point we're going to see a Thassa's Oracle kill, just like we saw last turn. And we can already see that Oracle in there. Opponent's build has Silence in it. Not all that much removal. There's not like Teferis and such in the flex slots. My opponent has these extra ways to protect themselves. And technically I should have conceded with that Cabal Therapy on the stack before they look at my hand. And there's the Dread Return on Thassa's Oracle. And we are dead. GG. So I would really prefer not to fight on my opponent's turn, but I don't have a bunch of like permanent based graveyard hate here. I don't know how much agency I have in like not fighting on their turn. I have a whole bunch of things that I can play, and the question is going to be how much of this do I actually want. It's very hard to suspend these Crashing Footfalls, and we have not successfully lined up an Amped Raptor or a Shardless Agent with a Vision or a Footfalls or an As Foretold yet. Boarding in more things that are bad against my opponent's Voice of Victory and Silence effects feels very awkward. I don't think I'm going to Veil. And then these are reasonable cards, but what are they coming at the cost of? Like, do I just get rid of these wholesale? Then my Cascade effects are way worse. They're already going to be way worse because I want to board in things that look like this. No to these. And I'm not going to have enough time to fully figure out my sideboarding, I think. No to those, no to those, no to 2 of those. I really need another minute here to consider my options. I think I've boarded out too many things that enable my suspend cards to be good. But we have not lined up a single one of those yet. And this is a matchup where, in theory, it can be slow enough that if I suspend one of those on turn 1, I think I can realistically cast them. A lot of land here. Let's try to get rid of some of this. Hopefully, like, play another Stormchaser's talent. Nope. More land. Yeah. I think I just need to keep casting spells here, despite the fact that this is my blue card for Force of Will. Let's go blue-red here. And Ponder. None of those pair with Force of Will. 2 of these are reasonable Magic the Gathering cards. I think I just take them, despite that awkwardness. Yeah. No. Send in for 3. And I think we leverage the fact that we are kind of flooding out with Stormchaser's talent to probably level this up and end up brainstorming or pondering or pyroblasting again. Sure. The Warhammer one? Yes. Then we've got a Surveil land that can clear one of the cards from Brainstorm. This does mean that my turn is not good. I'm holding up Pyroblast, I suppose. I'm going to try to turn one of these into a hedge maze, but I was really hoping to Galvanic Discharge a creature that my opponent played out, and then, like, get a little more damage. I think I try to discharge that, because then I can fight when I have 2 red easily available and still hedge maze here. I will take a ponder. Alright. Good stuff. Spell 1, Galvanic Discharge. Have Pyroblast for Brainstorm. Force of Will, pitching Step Through. Oh, I need to fetch for red. There's Volk. And we could either counter the spell or point this at Tamiyo directly, and I don't know that it matters. Opponent Flusters. At Pyroblast, at Pyroblast, at Pyroblast, at Pyroblast. I'm glad they did it that way. Because it's totally different if all of those are pointed at the Galvanic Discharge, right? Because now I can just Force of Will their Force of Will. Whereas I couldn't Force of Will 4 different copies of Fluster. Yeah. Alright, so that was my entire hand to answer Tamiyo. 3 energy to get rid of Tamiyo. I will crash in for 4 damage. And then next turn I have 5 mana, so I can get back a Ponder, cast the Ponder, crash in for 2. But I can just die to, like, Shuko Illusionist here. But I didn't. I don't know that I trust Shardless Agent. Shardless Agent has been a little bit of a scumbag. Do I want to Mystic Sanctuary anything? I don't think I mind Mystic Sanctuarying a cantrip. So there's Mystic Sanctuary. I'm going to put a Brainstorm on top. Stormchaser's Talent. Return the Ponder immediately. Cast the Ponder. None of those cards are cool cards to cascade into with Shardless Agent, but I think I'm just fine drawing these cards. Bam, bam, bam. No shuffle. Punchies for 2. Opponent to 8. I probably kill them in 2 combat steps, assuming that I get another Otter, which I think I'm going to do right here. So I Boomerang basics, the Stormchaser's Talent. Ooh, wow. Okay. We can do other things with my turn. Now I want to find something cool to do with Shardless Agent. Alright, living the dream. Waterfalls, you, into you, into you. Oh no, this is a then if you cast it from your hand. I will go bam, bam. So this is the dream. What are you doing? That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Can't attack either. But I like to cast the spell. I would like to cast the spell. Orm's Chant says I can't cast the spell. No Otter attack either is rough. Still can die to both combo pieces being played out. Otherwise, I probably have a 2-turn clock. Ooh, that's just a naked Thassa's Oracle. No combo potential there. That is just a 1/3 blocker, which hopefully I have something to say about that. I will start with the Shardless Agent. We'll cast a Stormchaser's Talent. Now both of my creatures can attack into Thassa's Oracle. Then we will amp our Raptor. Surgical Extraction. I mean, I'll cast it, if only for the prowess damage. I think I'll take the Dread Return. Trigger. And my opponent concedes the game there. Alright, we absolutely did the thing the deck wanted to do that game. Let's do more of that. GG's. Now I need more time to figure out the sideboarding. Wow, I had so few of these, and I just drew them. Okay. I imagine I have to go down on these. I think I need more of this stuff. Amped Raptor not playing well with Shardless Agent is a little awkward. Like, you Shardless Agent, you get the energy, but you don't get to further cascade like you do with Bloodbraid Elf into Shardless Agent. Does that mean that I don't, that I want 4 Shardless Agents and no Amped Raptors? Or does Amped Raptor being 2 mana and being able to hit these 25 cards just mean that I want that still? I kind of want As Foretold to just cast Ancestral that gets to my hand. But As Foretold does not have points of power and toughness. Amped Raptor Lucksack into Crashing Footfalls is one of my easiest ways to win the game. Maybe my green count is so low that Endurance is not super reasonable. Get those back in here. Do this. Lucksack Crashing Footfalls. I don't know. I will keep this. It feels like my games have such high variance. Like, if Amped Raptor hits one of my free cards, This hand is insane, right? Like, I do that backed by Force of Will, and, like, awesome. And if Amped Raptor hits something like a Surgical, it's like, oh, shit, my deck's terrible. I think I let Shuko resolve. That's a big draw. That is potentially a large amount of damage over the course of this game. I think I'm pretty afraid of about turn 4. Like, my opponent takes a turn or two to sculpt their hand, make their land drops. I'm very afraid of them going off with a silence effect as backup. That just beats my Force of Will currently. And my deck doesn't have the generic Abrupt Decay style permanent answers that just cleanly clears up things like Shuko. I don't hate that. I think I am supposed to just tap out for Amped Raptor this turn and believe in Force of Will for one turn. And then the following turn I hold up both of these. Amped Raptor hits Force of Will. Great job, Amped Raptor. I don't think my Cascade style cards are consistently doing what I need them to do. I've just bricked so many times in this league already, and it's only round 3. All right, there is my Force of Will. All right, my Force of Will was not enough to make it through the turn, and my opponent will win from here. They've got it. I'm not going to make them click through it. GG. On to the next one. All right, opening hand is okay. Fiery Islet is super awkward. This cost me a lot of life over the course of the game because I want to probably ponder and fetch later on. This is probably 5 life if I play this. The alternative is just intend on jamming Amped Raptor every time on turn 2 and fetch a dual land here, which I think is what I'm going to do. I think 4 to 5 life over the course of a game is very scary. I will secure green mana here and just be bad if I get wastelanded. All right, resolves. But in doing this, I lose the flexibility to, say, double Galvanic Discharge on a future turn. All right, big mana on the other side of the battlefield. Amped Raptor has betrayed me at every fucking turn. I'm going to ignore that card, given Boomerang basics as the draw. So this is just a redraw towards a Force of Will effect, and I can ponder afterwards. Crashing Footsfalls, all would have gotten paid off. And I think I am now pondering, looking for a counterspell. Pair with the Stormchaser's talent that I just returned to hand. Miss. I think I will just fully shuffle. Go for the random look at Force of Will. Miss. Then in for 3. I can't stop the One Ring style cards that can potentially come down off of Planar Nexus this turn. Alright, so it's probably going to be a Kozilek's Command. I can't ponder and Amped Raptor because my land is an ETB tapped land. I think it's probably correct to ponder for Force of Will still. Okay, that's Force of Will. I think I'm good with that. So then that's my pairing. Now I will... Thundering Falls. Do I want the land? I think I don't. Maybe I could have done this in a way where I end up doing Crashing Footsfalls, but I was kind of trying to leave open the red for Amped Raptor off of any mana source. I think I'm letting that happen and going after a true payoff card. Like, Kozilek's Command is good, but I think I am more scared of a One Ring or a Karn or a Mystic Forge. Oh, that's a lot of mana. Okay, opponent just passing the turn here. So I can make otters for days. I just need more things to stop my opponent's answers. I think I need another Force of Will. I think I am rolling the dice on an Amped Raptor here. All right. Listen here, you piece of shit dinosaur. I could really use an Ancestral. That is an As Foretold that I am not able to cast. Stonks. I don't think it was correct to Galvanic Discharge a spawn token, and my opponent like probably just sacrifices their spawn and counters that. But that's a little frustrating. Do I suspend? Or do I just play Stormchaser's Talent? I think I'm going to keep this in hand as a blue card to pitch to a future Force of Will. Send in for 1. Yeah. Wow, opponent is saving 1 life. Oh no, they're just going to cast now. Okay, yeah, that's reasonable. Or X equals 5. Again, with 1 counterspell here, I think I'm letting that go. So my biggest danger here is that my opponent can fire off 2 scary spells in the same turn, which I think is realistic on this amount of mana. Tropical Island might be an indication that I'm going to have things like stock up to think about here. Portent of Calamity. X equals 11. I will counter that. Hopefully. Pitch a Stormchaser's talent. Yeah, that's why I said hopefully. Alright, I never remember how this card works. So, opponent reveals 11. They get to just cast that Emrakul for free, right? Yeah, if you exile 4 or more cards this way, which my opponent does, easily Emrakul beats us there. Alright. GG's, we know what's up. My opponent's got show and tell, but they also have big mana Kozilek's command stuff. So I can do an inevitable betrayal here. Carpet of Flowers is kind of weird. It technically does stuff, but is not overly exciting. Pyroblast is fine. Force of Negations are fine. There's some other things like consigning an Emrakul extra turn trigger that matter as well. My opponent doesn't actually have all that many colorless cards, so viewing consign as a colorless counter like may or may not actually be reasonable. And again, every card, like these counter spells that I board in, just makes like the Amped Raptor cards worse and worse and worse and worse. I think I'm the beatdown here. I think my opponent wins the long games handily. I think I'm going to get rid of this stuff that helps me grind and hope to luck into one of these cards off one of these to win the game. Galvanic Discharge is not awesome here. I don't know that I want to mess with Veil. Every card that is not pushing me towards killing my opponent or doing something broken is rough. Holding up mana, also not great. Like, I want to tap out for these cards to luck into these cards. I think the sideboard needs to fully be rebuilt. This has 2 dead cards in it if I am trying to play an aggro game. Spend 4 is so much to do naturally. I can Stormchaser's Talent on 1, Ponder on 2, try to set up Shadless Agent on 3. I'm just very unhappy with this deck. I don't know how I am supposed to be approaching anything reasonably when the variance on the Shadless Agents and my Raptor friends are just so high. I just frankly do not have the time to make it to like turn 6 where I can like, okay, Ponder, set up Shadless Agent, go. That's just not happening. I'm just dying. And without something like Ancient Tomb to accelerate into As Foretold, that's also not necessarily ideal. As Foretold might be better than Raptor. Inner Nexus. Sure. Alright, well, this now becomes the plan, I guess. And we are just doing Otter Crimes and hoping that Otter Crimes lead somewhere good. If I hit Natural Shardless Agent, cool. If I don't, I Ponder. Suspending these doesn't count as casting these, so it doesn't trigger Prowess. Awkward. Alright, opponent does have 4 mana, turn 2, and is just passing. Alright, did not naturally hit the land. That's a fine draw. I am okay with that. Ponder into land. Yeah. No. Ponder. I just Ponder again. Try to do 8 damage right now. I don't think so. Bam. No. I also need this land drop to cast the Stormchaser's Talent or the Ponder, so that was not actually a question. Alright, resolves. Now the next question is, do I lose an Otter in combat? Do 2 Otters get jump blocked? What happens in that regard? Alright, opponent takes the full damage. Disruptor Flute is happening. That probably names Force of Will, which I don't actually have. Opponent has named As Foretold. Don't have that either. I am hoping to kill my opponent by dealing 9 Otter damage next turn. I think the easiest way for that to happen is Ponder. By Ponder, I see what's under the Amped Raptor. Okay, there is a... Yes, this works. So bam. Don't use Ponder's ability. Red and 1 for Amped Raptor. Actually get to cast a spell off of Amped Raptor. That's, I suppose, fine. None of those cards are Force of Will. It may just be that I want to click any order and try a random draw at Force of Will, or stopping, presumably, a Kozilek's command that is coming. I think I'm going to do that. Another Amped Raptor. Attempt on lethal. There's the Kozilek's command. The other mode is Spawns. That eats up a ton of damage. The opponent will triple block here. take 0, and then hopefully I don't die this turn. We are at the point where my opponent can just cast a show and tell, and that's that. That's a 1-ring. That's very bad. Fetch. Ancient Tomb doesn't cost my opponent life this turn. It is a stock up. That's a card that I highly suspected my opponent would have. And then there's the 1-ring card draw. My opponent has so many cards, and they get another turn to live. Ah, Crashing Footsfalls. A wonderful draw. It feels like if I go into the next turn without a counterspell, I'd probably die. I think I'm going to do Amped Raptor. I have 1 energy left over. And if I do something that gets me a card, I can potentially get a Fiery Islet redraw as well. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So I will Boomerang basics. If I do it on my own card, I get a redraw, which I think I'll take. That's a Misty. I can get a redraw by cycling this. I think I will do that. Well, I guess I don't need to do that until my opponent puts something scary on the stack, right? Yeah. And they will just put something scary on the stack. Like, they are at 5. I have 5 bodies in play. That's bad news. Planar Nexus. It is time. I will now take my redraw. Pyroblast doesn't do it here. Has to be a force. That's not a force. Alright, that's awful. I think a Surveil land... Is a Surveil land better than an Otter? This produces more permanents for if Emrakul gets involved, I guess. Alright, you got it? That's a new 1-ring. That's the same as having it. Like, that doesn't kill me immediately, but that means that I can't win on my next turn. That's an Atraxa. And looks at cards, including an Emrakul. Yeah, we can concede there. It does not feel like my deck is competitive with combo decks. Like, I just have too much innate clunkiness, and I have to spin the dice and tap out with things like Amped Raptor and Shadless Agent, which means that I can't hold up the counterspells, and the counterspells that I board in work very poorly with these as well. We got some things to address when we get to the outro. GG's. All right. Final round here. Opening hand is kind of like all the opening hands of this deck. Slightly awkward. If I end up using Force of Will pitching Brainstorm, then I don't have a way to bridge to the 3rd land to guarantee that Shardless Agent works. Galvanic Discharge is not super likely to have initial targets. Volcanic Fissure, so we're probably playing against a Moon Stompy deck. So the dream here is Brainstorm, hit a land, leave Crashing Foothills on top. Cast Shardless Agent into Footfalls next turn. I am going to swing for the fences and hope that that works. And it gets real awkward real fast if it doesn't. Prowess trigger. Okay, hits. So Crashing Footfalls goes too deep, and then it doesn't matter what I redraw for my turn. Send it. So I have Force of Will pitching blue card. I also have Galvanic Discharge, and then I have a pile of Rhinos. Oh, fuck, it was a fetch land. No. I have the island on top. We're good. Basic Mountain. I think that resolves. I think that one resolves. Then land drop, Shardless Agent, Cascade into Footfalls. There's my power. Otter you in the face. And then I just assume that countering one major spell from my opponent lets this team of idiots get the job done. Alright, there's the big mana. There's Karn. Karn represents Ensnaring Bridge, which is a problem. So I will just go ahead and Force of Will that. Love to draw a blue card here. Nice. So land drop. Fetch just literally anything. 4 mana into Talent. Return Force of Will to hand. You see, this is the shit I wanted to be doing all league. And instead we have gotten clowned on by combo decks where we don't have time to set this stuff up. Alright. Get it. So Chalice on 0, huge problem for my deck. I have a Meltdown that answers that. I have Force of Negation that stops it. I have Consign that stops it, I guess. Fire Magic is highly inefficient as a removal spell versus my opponent's large creatures. I don't think I'm into that. Inevitable Betrayal does stuff. Fetching 1 island is okay here, giving me the out of As Foretold to cast all of these cards against a Blood Moon effect. I'd prefer not to board out the Raptors. They're still castable after a moon. I don't know how to sideboard. I would like to. There's like hedging against Chalice on 1 and hedging against Chalice on 0, and both matter. The Ponders and Brainstorms matter for the Otters to be realistic sources of damage and to set up Shardless Agent, Amped Raptor nonsense. I could give up on Ancestral Vision. Maybe Consign not answering Chalice on the draw is a reason not to play it. And I do like light touch sideboarding. Do that. Boomerang Basics also gets Chalice on 0 out of the way. I really want these Ancestrals if we make it to the mid game, because my Force of Wills and Force of Negations take me down cards. I'm going to say that this is okay. Totally reasonable hand. Opponent on 6 cards, passes the turn. A Force of Will here, I am relatively safe. Ooh, these cards are not good for casting Amped Raptor next turn. Like, I could just cast Amped Raptor into Amped Raptor and produce another 2/1 body with First Strike, and that's id. I think I'm just going to shuffle that looking for green mana source, even though Force of Negation is kind of cool. Crashing Footfalls. Absolutely opposite of what I'm looking for. It makes me need a green source more. All right. Trinosphere. That destroys my entire deck. Cannot say yes to that. I will Force of Will. I'm going to try to believe in Shardless Agent happening. Galvanic Discharge. So I can try to find the next land drop, or I can attempt to Amped Raptor and just hit big. Let's go gambling. If I'm not casting the cards that the deck is built around, the deck is bad, right? Stormchaser's Talent. That is below average as a hit, I would say, but I'll take it. That's fine. Like, I can get that token out of the way and try to remain the aggressor. Wow, opponent junked City of Traders there. I don't think so. Let's do this. Prowess trigger. Yes, I am interested in another Stormchaser's Talent. I'm also kind of interested in the Brainstorm. But I think I'm shuffling here because I want green here. And I discharge that guy for 2. Then I play a new Otter. That is 6 damage. 14. So this is going quite well. Hopefully we don't see like a 1 ring here. That would be quite bad. I'm okay versus singular creatures. Blood Sun. Very glad that's not Blood Moon. My mana abilities are still live, so I can still Shardless Agent here, which seems huge. And there's a removal spell as well. So let's roll the dice on Shardless Agent. Okay, finally. Draw 3 cards. So these fetch lands lose their mana abilities, which is a big deal here. So, like, this does nothing. So, the Blood Sun builds tend to indicate that opponents are going bigger into things like Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and Lotus Field. So, like, my opponent could just wipe the board here. Yeah. Or sorry, Awakened Inferno is what I meant. So I lose all of my things there. And these lands being shut off means that I can't just Stormchaser's Talent and rebuy cool things here. But that there is pretty darn good. I'm just going to start there in case something weird happens, which I don't expect it to, but I'm just going to do it now. And Talent. I think I still ponder this turn. No. I can get another mana source to return things with Stormchaser's Talent, but like these cards just don't, I don't think do more for me than just a random 1 mana cantrip. Well, those are worse than what I just had. I should not have played that other land. I should have held that for brainstorm purposes. But I guess Crashing Footfalls also just wants to go back. So how many more Haymakers does my opponent have becomes the question. So that's another one. Fury. Yep. So this one can slip very quickly with Fable Fury threatening to take over the game. Brainstorm is very close to good. Oh no. So I can't fetch this stuff away. I have to redraw everything. Unless I Boomerang Basics Blood Sun. Is that crazy? Just take that out of play. Fetch. I could double Suspend Rhinos. I think I just die to 8 damage on board before that. What if I hit As Foretold? after shuffling. That would be pretty cool. Yeah. I think the dream is fetch double Surveil. So put Hedge Maze onto the stack, fetch, put Thundering Falls onto the stack, have a couple of looks at As Foretold. No to you. No to you. Bouncing the Blood Sun means that my opponent gets a redraw off of recasting the Blood Sun, and they have plenty of mana, so that's not great. Oh, it's another one. Hate that for me. So I now am going to start accruing emblems that deal damage to me, and my opponent can now use this treasure to play Blood Sun in second main. They didn't, and I guess I'm thankful for that. But I am at 3 life. Alright, deck. I don't know where exactly we gotta go, but that Chandra is at 8 loyalty, and everything is bad. Yeah? Discharge does not kill Chandra even with my floating energy. I think mana is a bottleneck here. I think I raw shuffle. More rhinos. I think that means that I am realistically dead. I'll take this redraw in case I think I'm wrong. Oop. I am very scared of Trinisphere. So now I know that it's not Blood Moon, it's Blood Sun. Not so much with getting rid of enchantments permanently in this deck. Boomerang Basics is my temporary answer to that sort of stuff. Meltdown answers Trinisphere. Consign answers Trinisphere. I might need Consign. Trinisphere is a really big deal. We're just fully going away from the card draw. Like, my opponent's deck gets scarier as the game goes on. Just Rhino. I am okay with that plan. Alright. Scumbag As Foretold finally shows up. Let's hope that we can leverage that into a win. Stormchaser's talent is medium. I think I just want to get deeper into my deck here. This is my plan for victory, is get to 3 mana, do this, win. And my opponent's build is probably a little slower to get off the ground. I think I'm into pondering here. Oh, yeah? Consign for Trinisphere? I think I'm going to take Consign for Trinisphere and intend on using a fetch land here. I use the fetch lands as soon as I can in case Blood Sun comes into play instead. Alright. Well, that occurs. This does not need to be a basic. I'm expecting Blood Sun. So there's that. Galvanic Discharge. That's all fine. I'm just going to get this picking up, I think. Because I might need to use it to cast other spells for free here, depending on how this goes. I don't know, maybe I'm doing this and not leaving up Consign, because Trinisphere is such a problem. I think you play Trinisphere on that turn over Blood Sun if you have it. Well, fuck me, I guess. We can still use As Foretold to cast the broken cards by paying 3 mana, which looks like that's what I'm doing. So cast for 0 with As Foretold, which is really casting for 3 mana, and that's still fine overall. This comes into play untapped for Blood Sun, which also means that we're not surveilling. And hopefully Rhinos just win this. Okay, Chandra can't deal 3 damage and sweep these. Chandra could kill one of them and then, like, potentially die to combat damage. Alright. I think I just... Oh no, I can't discharge. That's why I had F6'd, because Trinisphere. Oh, nice. That's very good. So, send at and kill your Planeswalker. And then... Asked for free with As Foretold. Biggest air quotes free possible. 12 damage on board. Removal spells, 4 blockers. Chandra and Fury don't sweep my board. Don't One Ring me. X cost spell? Oh, is it going to be like a giant Shatter Skull Smashing? Alright, my opponent sat there for a long time with enough mana to do Shatter Skull Smashing for X equals 6 in there, which is very awkward to do on the Magic Online interface. I suspect what happens is they were trying to do that, couldn't they said yes. So I think they couldn't figure it out. It is just very, very clunky. And opponent agrees. Ensnaring Bridge. Singleton Meltdown? I have like one answer to that. An opponent just yeets a Spirit Guide so the Rhinos can't attack. Alright. No, I've got Boomerang Basics. 12 power in play is not yet necessarily lethal. I think I'm fine with more Rhinos. Let's just build up the squad and have guaranteed lethal later. Opponent says F. Yeah, it is a lot of rhinos. I do have to get the bridge out of play. But this is 20 power. There goes a Trinosphere. If opponent wants that mana. Negative. Land drop. Ooh, that's scary. I can discharge that Karn. Second ensnaring bridge. Alright. Alright, we'll find another one and get to 6 mana. Goodbye, Karn. Getting to 6 mana through Blood Sun actually, like, legitimately tough. Ooh. Now it's like Meltdown. Okay. 4 dead cards in hand. As Foretold. Helping be a turn counter. So this is Drago. My Consign is still technically live. I can replicate that a bunch of times. That's not a colorless card. Hate that. Fury. Opponent just domes me for damage. So this is 2 damage, by the way, just in case you aren't super familiar with this one. This card does not see a lot of legacy play anymore. As Foretold goes up. That is not a land through Blood Sun. I guess I'll put it into play in case it matters later. I have plenty of things that I could put back right now if we find a Brainstorm. Chalice. Wow, opponent said no to Chalice. That's crazy. Fury occurs. I don't know, maybe with 3 copies of Crashing Footsfalls in graveyard already. Like, that's fine. I don't know that I care about that Fury trigger enough to blow my Consign. Mystic Sanctuary. That's a land. It doesn't do its land thing, though. So, no, I can't double Galvanic Discharge that through Chalice. That Emblem probably kills me. Even faster than the Planeswalker just would be. Yes. Meltdown. Ooh, opponent needs the treasure. We'll quadruple block. This actually matters because my opponent can Reflection of Kiki Jiki copy Fury. So if I only block with 1, my opponent just kills it. Yep. I'm starting to get to the point where I need to start thinking about consigning Fury triggers to just have enough of a board to get in and kill a Planeswalker if I draw the Meltdown. We're going to cast with Replicate. So that'll stop that. If we weren't taxed so hard by like Trinosphere and Chalice and double ensnaring bridge all at the same time, like there's worlds where we can Boomerang basics a bridge and consign the Chalice trigger. I don't think we're living in that timeline though. All right. Boomerang basics. All right. So this is the Chandra emblem turn, which I imagine that my opponent just takes that. They do. This will kill me so quickly. Yeah. The simple Mox is now 5 damage. And I lose 1 Rhino per turn to this nonsense. Feels like Meltdown. Get it all or bust. Alright. So I think opponent did not make an extra thing there. Alright, they're just doing Shatter Skull Smashing for a smaller amount. That puts me to 3. Any spell beats me. That's not gonna do it. Alright, and that is lethal. Meaning that my opponent wins the match. And that was an absolute beating of a league. GG's. Alright, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. I think that this deck looks good on paper, and then once you get to playing it, it absolutely falls apart. Amped Raptor misses 10 of your non-land cards, which feels like a lot. And it felt like this deck did not have the mana it needed to do what it wanted to do. Let's just move these over here for a minute. So we have 1, 2, 3 different ETB tapped lands in this deck, which I think is way too greedy. This deck needs to hit 3 mana every time on curve to cast As Foretold or Shardless Agent, even though the deck is on paper relatively low to the ground. And I think you want lands because being able to do something like Otter or Amped Raptor or Shardless Agent, produce a bunch of threats, Force of Will something, Stormchaser's Talent, 4 mana, return Force of Will, that feels very strong. And when a bunch of our lands are ETB tapped land decks, like, we don't have starting mana sources to suspend these things, which came up a lot. And I think Fiery Islet is also bad in the deck. It does not contribute to Mystic Sanctuary if that remains in the deck. and the deck has plenty to do with its mana when you get to the late game if you have a Stormchaser's talent in play. Like, doing that on 4 is a very reasonable play. So I think this mana base is probably off. I would probably remove 2 of the 3 ETB tapped lands. So I would be probably keeping this one and replacing these 3. Probably just with more dual lands or fetch lands. Like 9th fetch land, Tropical Island, Volcanic Island, or something like that, I think smooths out the mana a little bit. More generally, I think I would pretty strongly consider cutting Amped Raptor and playing 2 more As Foretold, and then just some more interaction in the early game. This is a very bad roll the dice Amped Raptor deck if you can't set it up. And maybe I can change my play patterns and just, like, not shove with Amped Raptor. Like, treat this as a 3-mana card, and it requires Ponder or Brainstorm in order to be castable. But it feels like if when you cast Amped Raptor and Shadless Agent, they are not innately good, you should not be doing this in Legacy. I'm not sure if we made Rhinos until the final round, and I think we did 1 Ancestral over the course of a bunch of rounds. You could also be a Tamiyo deck. Like, straight up cut 4 Amped Raptor, play 4 Tamiyo. You might still just need to remain red for removal. Like, the Fatal Push or Galvanic Discharge might just be required beyond just Boomerang basics. Tamiyo would also incentivize you to put more lands into your deck. Or looking at it from a different route, maybe you can't be the Stormchaser's Talent Boomerang basics deck if you are trying to consistently set up Ancestral Visions, Footfalls, As Foretold stuff. Shadless Agent making Amped Raptor a bad hit is also kind of problematic. Like, getting 4 power for 3 mana is not enough in Legacy right now. The Amped Raptors out of something like an energy deck are so much more scary, like just hitting a Johnny, Ocelot, Pride, Guide of Souls, than they are hitting our random 1-drops here. Or, as frequently happened, just missing these cards. I think the sideboard in almost its entirety is bad. I don't think the spell-based stuff synergizes at all with our Amped Raptor Shardless Agent stuff. So we're making the core of our deck extremely worse in the post-sideboard configurations by playing, like, Consign, Force of Negation, Surgical, Meltdowns, Pyroblasts. Like, Meltdown on X equals 0, I guess sometimes does stuff, but it's just very awkward. So if I was rebuilding the sideboard, I might look at permanent-based stuff. Just spinning the wheels here, hypothetically. If you cut red and you go into white for white-based removal, you can start looking into, like, Rest in Peace, Lavinia, Containment Priest, Meddling Mage type stuff that are permanents. Null Rods, Disruptor Flutes. I think there is a lot of work to be done here. I think there is the start of something reasonable, but at the end of the day, is this better than playing Tamiyo? Is this better than playing Murktide? There are just easier ways to win that don't have the degree of variance that this deck has. And I think that's my takeaway message. This deck is trying to do a lot of things, and it is working very hard. And it's not necessarily working out. So Neodim, I hope it is back to the drawing board for you in a positive way. And I hope this league gave you some good inspiration. Folks, if you have any thoughts for our brewer, throw them down in the comments below. And I hope you all have a great rest of the day. See ya.